We're at Mammoth Caves, Kentucky. Gonna be here a week. It's a beautiful early spring day today. I don't see a cloud in the sky. We have we have one cave tour this morning and another one next Thursday. There's been a lot of flooding and things here in Kentucky, so the river level is high. We're just waiting for that to go down so we can maybe do some kayaking on the Green River. And there's also looked to be pretty extensive bike trails in the park, plus some backcountry camping. So I think there's plenty for us to do here this week if the weather cooperates. They're taking us in a bus for this tour. This is the Great Onyx Lantern Tour. So we're going to be walking through the cave with the aid of some kind of gas lantern. And they're busing us to the location. This isn't Mammoth Caves, this is Onyx Cave. It's a separate cavern in the same park. We've got our lanterns set out here. Not everyone is going to get a lantern. Looks like we'll have about 6 among our group. We're good.
You're freaking good. What is wrong with you? What?
I want to make you. You guys see?
There's a critter there. It's about 54 degrees in the cave. It actually feels warmer in here than it is outside.
Yes.
We're 19th century cave explorers. That's the reason for the lantern experience.
I get dripped on.
And on those first tours, they would have advertised this section of the cave with all these formations here as a trip through fairyland. So we're going to take our time going through fairyland. Once we come out the other side of it, I'll tell you a little bit more about it as we continue on. So as we were coming in, we came through Fairyland, which is already a pretty enticing, mysterious name, but we passed by formations like the Frozen Niagara, like the Bridal Altar, things called the Spaghetti Factory. Each one of those names kind of meant to elicit some type of reaction from you. What exactly does that mean? They have what in the cave? Making people want to come down here. You see teeth coming down from the top, from the bottom, right? Well, I'll tell you, those are all pretty good ones. LP was looking more for a specific angle. He knew the kind of audience he was working with, and you may remember I told you he was a Baptist preacher for much of his life. This became the nativity scene here. And you can see that with all of the wise men standing around here. He called this the Heavenly Madonna above it. And one thing that he found great business with was actually selling pictures of these named formations on postcards. That was kind of the main media you could give out of the day. But again, you understand, he was a pretty wise businessman, right? So for a formation like this, you could buy a postcard with the nativity scene, you could buy a postcard with the Heavenly Madonna. If you wanted to have both, you're going to have to buy 2 postcards and put them next to each other to do something like that. So,
It's interesting how the nature of this cave has changed as we've made our way along. At the entrance we had a lot of water dripping, stalactite, stalagmite formation, and this part of the cave is very dry. And we don't have any big cavern. This is a much lower ceiling. Some sparkle there. He said that's gypsum. He said the Native Americans had harvested that gypsum for thousands of years in Mammoth Caves, and they have no idea what they used it for. So that's interesting. What would they have wanted that for?
We always like to stop down here if we have a small enough group to do it. You can see a little bit of a greater variety. and all the gypsum down here as well. These are formations that we call duck feathers, just because of, you can kind of see how they do resemble that. The cave explorers oftentimes are not terribly clever about these names. They just kind of call it what it looks like. So we have duck feathers here. Here in a little bit, we'll see some good examples of gypsum flowers. Almost looks like a bouquet coming out of the wall towards us. And other times where you just see little bumps or holes of it, you'll get things like snowballs, popcorn, grapes throughout here. But certainly, this is a very fragile, very delicate part of it. Gives you a little bit of an idea, again, of something like those prehistoric peoples coming into Mammoth Caves, scraping away certainly that crust, but also larger, thicker sections of it, like this just above us here. So certainly the giant Mammoth Caves, but also all these hundreds of other smaller caves like Great Onyx in the area are very important habitat for these.
The rangers abandoned us.
They walked away with the light so we'd see what it was like to be in the cave with no light. And now they're coming back with our light.
The bat's not there anymore. No, I'm kidding.
How was that, folks? I'll tell you, you're lucky this tour doesn't coincide with lunchtime, or we'd be gone a much longer time.
We can hear the water as we approach the Fairyland section.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we talked about, on the surface with the safety card, we talked about the white nose syndrome, how it's affecting bats, but we just saw a couple of bats here. So are they affected by the white nose or not? Potentially, they could be. Really, the white nose syndrome affects bats as they're hibernating inside the cave. So it's not quite the right time of the year for it, but we see bats return to the cave kind of en masse in the fall. They're inside the caves all winter, and during that time, that white nose syndrome allows a fungus to begin growing on them. Grows on their wings, on their face, especially on their nose, as the name suggests. And the sickness itself does not kill the bats, but what it does is it wakes them up out of their hibernation. It disturbs them. They leave the cave thinking that it's springtime, but of course it's the middle of the winter. There's no food for the bats. It's far too cold for them. They end up dying of starvation or exposure. So these ones could have some white nose on them. That on its own isn't enough to kill them. So it's more like athlete's foot, I'm told. It's kind of an itchy, irritating thing. But also, we've seen white nose kind of run its course in Mammoth Cave and the caves around us. It first arrived right around 2012, 2013, and it frankly decimated many of our bat populations. We lost some hibernating species by up to 50%. We lost some by over 90%. So certainly it's kind of ran its course here. It's thought that it's kind of done all the damage it will do here. The remaining bats, even if they have the syndrome, they have the sickness themselves, it's thought that they're at least partially resistant to it. If not, it's thought that they would have raised some cub to the sickness by now. So again, it seems like we're through the worst of it here, but now we're talking about 50% of a population, maybe even as low as 10% of a population, trying to rebuild to 100. That's just going to take decades, if not centuries, to do that here. And we only walk across the map at the end, so hopefully we don't spread it to another cave that doesn't have that type of sickness yet. Good question.
Salamander going by. And he had me hold my light on.
Spider. We're here for the Grand Avenue tour. This is a 4-hour, 4-mile cave walk. So one of the most strenuous walks they have in the park, and the longest, they said.
Really, it's the last.
So it's really cool that there's already little like formations on it.
Place is huge and it just goes on and on. This part of the cave is called Cleveland Avenue. It is not named after the city of Cleveland or after Grover Cleveland. It's apparently named after an early professor of geology who wrote, I guess, the first book in America on geology in the 18 teens. Somebody named this in honor of him. We're getting into a part of the cave that's a little narrower, well, maybe a lot narrower, and more remote. We just left an area where there was actually an elevator that you could have exited if you felt like you had had enough.
What?
But the ranger emphasized, if you feel like you want to exit, now's your time, because we'll be 1.5 miles away from any exit points when we get further down in here. This is a tighter section, at least left to right. The top is still fairly high, but left to right, it's much more narrow. Careful. It's difficult, I think, to give the impression of what it's like in here. This is like walking through a slot canyon. It goes way up into the dark recesses, but from side to side it's fairly narrow. The passage has gotten much more narrow again, although still very high.
Close it is to our shoulders.
Huh? What about it?
I was just showing how close
Oh,
walls
yeah.
are on us.
Although still very high. Still like walking through a slot canyon.
We've been through narrower slot canyons.
Yeah. They have the concrete path through here, which makes for a smooth walking surface, although it's possible to step off of it. So you have to be careful not to twist your ankle, stepping off the edge. Low bridge here. For the most part, we have not had to duck, but this area is a little lower. This tour is basically just a long walk through a very long cave tube. Just kind of marveling at how long it is. How extensive this one passage of the cave is.
So here's the crazy thing. I haven't really talked about the longest cave in the world up to this point. But right now, or at least 2 years ago, the official number that was given to us by the folks that do the mapping, 426 miles and counting. They have not found the end of this cave. Now, you throw out a number like that, people start thinking, where in the world does this thing go? All 426 miles fit in a 49 square mile area. You took a map and scaled down to 7 mile by 7 mile square. It would set on top of every single note of the Mammoth Caves. And it's because it's multi-levels and about 3 or 4 ridges right now here in the park. There's 4 ridges here in the park. Well, 3 are in the park, 1's outside the park. But anyways, they're all really close together. And over time through that mapping, we found connections under the valleys between those different ridge systems that drive that mileage up.
Snaking down. This gypsum deposits popcorn on the ceiling. Here we are. Tightest passage we've been in so far.
Oh, caveman.
Yeah. Caveman days.
Caveman, got it? Caveman.
The ranger said the last eighth of a mile or so we would get into more water features, stalactites, stalagmites, that kind of thing. Look at the water cascading out of that hole in the roof. Now we're getting into more of the type of feature that a lot of times is the main feature of a cave. In this particular cave, it's only right here at the end, which is the wet, the water, stalactites, stalagmites, that kind of thing.
Oh, this is beautiful. I wonder if this is Niagara Falls. I think it is. Look at that. It's like fins. I know. Whoa.
The stairways there are down to the frozen Niagara formation and then back up again.
That was incredible.
This is one of the lowest sustained passages of the whole tour. We haven't had to be bent over this long anywhere else, I don't think.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
I think I stepped on one.
I couldn't get through.
Look at that. Look at
Whoa. That's all dirt stuff.
Because they used to not be. You.
After each one of these cave tours, they have us walk through this soap. Thank you.
Have a good day.
The idea is that we are avoiding
It likes that environment.
avoiding taking, what do they call that? White
fungus or something.
white something fungus from this cave to other caves that we may go to.